Sunday, the Israel Defense Forces said that Iranian forces carried out a missile strike towards Israel, saying that the missile was in fact Iranian-made. Is Russia concerned at all that Iran is using Syria to launch missiles towards Israel?
More in broader sense, our position is well known to Iranian colleagues. Our position is that for us it's unacceptable their claims and possible deeds aimed against Israel. Their statements preventing the state of Israel from existence, even threats to undertake some action in order to destroy or eliminate the state of Israel. This is a well-known position. We are not hiding this position from our Iranian colleagues, and we hope that this position is taken into account. As for your question about this apparently Iranian missile, it's not difficult. It's difficult for me to judge whether it was Iranian or somebody else's. We know the information made by your military Ministry of Defense. It apparently, according to their estimation, it was Iranian or pro-Iranian, or I don't know, Iranian-colored missile, and Israel reacted as reacted, which is very, very unfortunate. As a matter of principle, we say that, of course, every country has the right to defend its citizens, and, of course, every country has the right to ensure its security, but it should be done in accordance with the international law. And any strikes on the territory of the sovereign states are against the United Nations Charter and against the existing Security Council's resolution. That is why we cannot support such a practice. At the same time, we are strongly against any attacks against Israel. Of course, if it's were Iranian missile, it's very, very unpleasant.
Mm-hmm. According to the IDF, the rocket that was fired from Syria towards Hermon, which is a ski resort, was fired from an area some 45 kilometres from Israel's border. We know about the conversations between Israel and Russia about this buffer zone. Does that mean that Russia is not able to fulfil its promises around keeping Iran from Israel's border?
I heard of these reports coming from the Israeli sources. Apparently, some places under their attack were located less than 85 kilometers from the Israeli border. In my first point, we took seriously some time ago all the Israeli concerns, and we undertook very serious measures in our conversations and negotiations with Iranians at the very, very high level, and persuading them to withdraw from the immediate proximity of the Israeli border. It was about 85 up to 100 kilometers. In our view, it would be better for Israeli-Russian cooperation if all these concerns were submitted or conveyed to the Russian militaries who are present on the ground in Syria. Maybe some actions could be undertaken by them.
Are you saying that the cooperation is unsuccessful at the moment?
Who is saying?
Are you saying that?
No, I am not saying that, because I am sure that despite of all these recent problems, well-known problems, I would not like to elaborate on them. The contacts between our Ministry of Defense and general staffs are still on the way, and now they are discussing how to improve this cooperation between two military forces in order to prevent any incidents related to our soldiers, to Russian soldiers and Israeli militaries.
What is Russia able to guarantee Israel with regards to preventing Iran and its proxies from targeting Israel?
First of all, I mentioned that our position is well known to the Iranian leadership, and it's not just the Russian position. Many countries and many powers in this world are taking the same position, and I'm sure this position will be taken into the consideration by Iranian leadership.
It's not really the position that I'm asking. Of course, we have talked about that. You say it is well known. It's more that, of course, Russia says to Israel that it will be enforcing that buffer zone, that Iranian entrenchment is not there as an aggressor towards Israel. When we continue to see aggression towards Israel in Iran, what will Russia do and what can Russia do to prevent Iran's aggression towards Israel from Syria?
What do you call the Iranian aggression?
When we're seeing a missile launched from...
How many people were killed by this aggression?
Because Israel has an Iron Dome air defense system that managed to intercept that missile.
So how many people were killed by the Israeli operation?
As we know, we're not talking about death
I'm sorry,
toll.
it's just suggestions.
Sure.
And we of course, there are serious suggestions, serious accusations, and of course, we are seriously, we will continue seriously taking into account all this possible scenario and possible threats to the security of the State of Israel. And what I'm talking about, I know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about is not just empty words, because there are deeds behind that. And of course, if there are real concerns expressed by Israelis, we are ready to convey these concerns and to take measures in our contacts with our partners in Iran. Mm-hmm. And more generally, we would prefer that sooner or later, better sooner, there will be negotiations between Israel and Iran about all existing problems. Because it's counterproductive to see the situation in the Middle East through one prism only. It's Iran's threat. It's not the main reason for the tensions in the region. It's not the main reason.
Would Russia...
We can understand what Israeli colleagues are talking about and telling us, but the main threat is the existence of the international terrorism. It's Daesh, it's Jabhat al-Nusra, and Al-Qaeda affiliated groups and forces. This is the real threat.
The fact that Israel seemingly has changed its policy around taking responsibility for striking Iranian targets in Syria, to what do you attribute that change in policy?
I haven't seen any changing in policy. There is one change which we noted that in the past, Israeli Minister of Defense or commander of Israeli armed forces, they very frequently made immediate comments on any reports in the press, both local and international. But now, after each strike, each move, there is a statement at the very, very high level. And in our mind, it's very much connected with the election campaign here in this country. Whether it's helpful or how it contributes to the safety of Israel, it's not up to us to comment and to take into consideration.
Israel launched its response attack in Syria after it was reported in the Al-Quds Al-Arabiya that the Russian government, in fact, asked Israel to cease launching strikes near the Damascus airport. Is Russia going to tolerate Israeli activity in that area? We didn't hear a response from Russia when Israel continued to do that.
You are right when you mentioned the threat caused by such kind of activities very near to the international airport. Of course, it's dangerous. Of course, it should be taken with more responsibility and more cautious. As a matter of principle, I said any strikes on the territory of the sovereign state are unacceptable. It's our principal position, and we expressed this position for many occasions. But reality is different, and sometimes Israel feels free to undertake some action which we cannot accept, but we have to take into account this reality. And our goal in our contacts with the Israeli militaries is to ensure safety of our soldiers in Syria and their safety and their health, and to ensure that nobody is killed or wounded.
What will be the consequences for Israel if it continues to ignore those requests by Russia?
We still hope that sooner or later here in Israel the political elite would understand will understand that it's better to negotiate than to fight.
It didn't quite answer the question. The question was, will there be consequences for Israel if it continues to launch these strikes? It's made its red lines. It says it will continue to defend itself against Iranian threats inside Syria. Will there be consequences for Israel if it continues to act in this way?
You're asking about military consequences, political consequences,
will there be any
psychological
at
consequences?
At the moment, it seems as though Russia's kind of tolerating Israel's activity.
Politically, once again, it's totally unacceptable. According to the report of our defense ministry these days, 4 Syrian militaries were killed, 6 more were wounded, and there were some damage made to the infrastructure of the Damascus International Airport. This is unacceptable.
Right, but what will the consequences be of that unacceptable behavior by Israel?
We will continue persuading them to change the mode of operation.
All right, it seems that Russia will be tolerating this kind of behavior just based on the fact that there's no clear response here.
It's intolerable and inadmissible.